Hi, Zachary Ring from Thea Enterprises, here with another how-to video. I'm especially excited about today's video because it's a culmination of all the things we've learned about thus far. So in today's video, we're going to talk about everything from basic programming to single variable programming to conditional programming. So if you're not familiar with these concepts, go back, check out the other videos on our channel and get up to speed quickly so we can talk about today's concept, which is tunable white lighting or white tuning with Lutron HomeWorks. Now, the easiest way, and it's almost like cheating, is to just use Ketra. Ketra is so easy to program, especially now with HomeWorks QSX. It's fully integrated. It programs just like any other load would in your HomeWorks system. And fortunately, I have Ketra all throughout my loft space here. So for downlights, A-lamps and decorative lighting, cove lighting, I'm able to use Ketra. Now that we're so used to having this type of control, I expect it everywhere, even in places like my fish tank. So I could have just put a semi-directional Ketra A lamp over my fish tank, but my corals wouldn't have got the UV light that they needed. What I did is I found a third-party solution that has two 0 to 10 volt inputs, one for intensity and one for color temperature. Then I used two Lutron wireless control modules. They're the LMJ modules. See the full model number in the description. It's LMJ-5T-DV-B. Don't expect you to write that down. Anyways, it communicates wirelessly with the system using Clear Connect Type A technology, and it can switch the line voltage on and off for my fixture, and it can also provide the 0 to 10 volt control signal. Now, since my fixture has two inputs, I need one LMJ for intensity, one for CCT. So I can come in here to my app and I can change the intensity of the light. And I can also change the color temperature of the light. Now I can certainly do this manually. We're also going to use two Pico remotes. We'll program one for intensity and one for color temperature. But we expect this light to be dynamic and change throughout the day automatically, just like Ketra might. Now, this is where it becomes a little bit challenging and we see how spoiled we are by a solution like Ketra. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to create time clock events that change both the intensity and the color temperature throughout the day. We're going to want to put in long fade times so that we don't notice any abrupt changes. And then the hardest part is we're going to have to find a way to enable and disable these events and jump in and out of this cycle or this show that's running throughout the day. So we're going to get into that now. Here we are inside HomeWorks Designer. I've done some work already and I've installed the two LMJ wireless 0 to 10 volt controllers. I labeled them left and right so that I know which one I wired the intensity channel to and which one I wired the color temperature or CCT channel to. Also, I only need to switch the line voltage with one of those modules, and I'm actually doing that with the left module here. I'm going to create my loads now. So go to Design Loads, and while it's one pendant, I need to create two loads. One for the intensity and one for the CCT. Now, before I move on, this is really important. I need to set the load type correctly. LED 0 to 10 volt. Don't really need to worry about the wattage. I'm just going to throw 40 watts in there. Fish tank CCT, LED 0 to 10 volt, 40 watts. Now I'm going to go back to design controls, and remember, this one is for the intensity channel and this one is for the CCT channel. All right, and if you're starting from scratch, don't forget to link assign these devices to your RF link and activate them as well. Before we dive into our time clock events, I want to create a way to enable and disable these events from running without having to go into every single event in the app and enable and disable them. So I'm going to create a variable, and I'm going to call this fish tank. We'll call it natural show. And the default state, I'm going to make that on or run, and I'll set this one to off. Remember, these always go to their default state when you perform a transfer. All right, let's create some time clock events. These time clock events are going to run periodically throughout the day, and they're going to change the intensity and the color temperature of the lights. I'm going to add a time clock just for my fish tank natural show. And all my events are going to be contained within this time clock. I'm also going to create them all as weekly events. I want them to run every day of the week, regardless of what the date is. I'll name this natural 1 for simplicity. And I'm just concerned about my coral growth, so I'm going to put it on a 12-hour light cycle that goes off of a fixed time. I kind of want this to revolve around my schedule to optimize my viewing hours of the fish tank. If you were doing this for general lighting in a home, you might want to base it off astronomic time that's specific for the location that you're dealing with. Before I forget, I'm going to change my program type to single variable and select fish tank natural show, because I only really want this to run if it's set to on. Now, thinking of my specific application, this is probably just going to run every day. I don't care about it. Use your imagination. Think about the strip lights, the under cabinet lights, something in the home that you're dealing with. You probably just don't want them to turn on automatically at sunrise every day. You probably want the customer to come in, push an on button, push a natural button that sets this show to start at the right point and then continue on during the day. So I'll show you how to create that keypad button to switch this variable back and forth in a few minutes. But for now, let's just set our action based on this being on. So if this is on at 9 a.m., I want the intensity to go to 5%. And this is going to look a little confusing. You're not going to see color temperatures in here because all the system knows is that this is a 0 to 10 volt LED load. So if my range is 10,000 K to 20,000 K, because I'm dealing with light for my corals, that's what my range is going to be. But it's not going to be really clear as to what 50% is going to give me. It's probably going to be somewhere close to the middle, maybe 15,000 K. But depending on things like voltage drop and different dimming curves and how that driver interprets the voltage that it's reading, you are going to get variations here. And this is why it's not a perfect solution. Things can get a little bit more accurate, and these same principles apply if you're using something like DALI or EcoSystem. But once again, this just really highlights why Ketra is the best solution. I'm going to set this to 5% to start. And I'm okay with a 2-second fade time. Basically at 9 a.m., if this is triggered to run, I want the lights to turn on to 5%, and I want it to do it relatively quickly. So 2 seconds is a good fade time for me. I'm going to create a second time clock event. Oh, and before I forget, I obviously don't want anything to happen if it's in the off variable state. So this one here, I'm actually going to do right afterwards. So I want this to happen at 9:01 a.m. I have to change this. I only want this to happen if it's set to on. And now I'm going to have my intensity go to 25%, but I'm going to do a long fade time. I want this to slowly fade to 25%. So basically by 10 a.m., so 59 minutes is what I want to do my fade time as. So it'll fade from 5% up to 25% over the course of roughly an hour. So go to my calculator here and I have to convert it to seconds. So 59 times 60. Let me just double check. All right. So nice long fade time there. And I'm going to use that same fade time for my CCT, but I actually want my CCT to change a little bit more quickly. So I'm going to go 50% there. All right. So even though this is starting at 9:01 a.m., it's going to finish at 10 a.m. Next time clock event is going to occur at 10 a.m. I'm going to bring my intensity up to 50%, 3600 second fade. And I'm going to bring this guy all the way up to the max. Now, the more time clock events you can create, it's probably better. That'll make sense in a little bit. So you're gonna have to balance this out. Doing time clock events every 5 minutes is going to be pretty excessive. But the more seamless you want it to be to jump in and out of this show for the end user, the more time clocks, the better. For my example here, I'm just going to do it for in the morning. As the change is happening in the morning, I'm going to do it every hour. And then it's actually going to sit at the same CCT and the same intensity through the midday. And then both of those values are going to drop back down over a period of a couple hours towards the end of the day as well. We're still ramping up here at 11 a.m. I think you guys are getting the hang of this by now. So this one I'm going to take to 75%. And CCT, we're already maxed out. All right, this looks good. Fade times look good. Let's create our next event. This one is at noon, so we're good there. I know I'm going to forget to change program type on one of these. All right, 100%, 100%, 3600. So this is not an exercise to teach you the logic behind what color temperatures and what intensities you should be setting throughout the day. That's going to require some side research. Probably the best bet is if you're already using Ketra, take a look at what Ketra is doing throughout the day. Ketra and Lutron have done a lot of research to determine what those right levels look like. That's another reason why I'm doing this strictly for my coral, guys, right? This is just for my coral growth. I want this thing to ramp up to be at max intensity by 1 in the afternoon. I'm going to let that go for about 4 hours, and then I'm going to ramp it back down. So it's just the theory. This is how to do it. Take this and apply it to your own application. So my next time clock event isn't actually going to happen until 5 p.m. because remember, this starts at noon. It's going to take an hour for it to ramp up from 75% to 100% intensity. Then I just wanted to hang out at its max intensity and max CCT until around 5 p.m. Then I'm going to have it start ramping back down. So this one here, natural 6, is going to occur at 5 p.m. And I'm just kind of going to go backwards here. Still want this to be the same, but now I'm going to start dropping my intensity. I'm going to keep the CCT here for a little bit longer, but it's not going to hurt anything to be consistent with that. All right, so at 6 p.m., when it's enabled, we're going to drop this to 50%. And this is going to stay at 100%. Seven p.m. Whoops, 25% intensity. And let's start dropping this down now as well. 50% over an hour. p.m. Single variable. So I think now you can see how tedious this is already becoming, and I'm dealing with one lighting load in my space. Drop this back down to 5%. That's where we started. And long fade time. And then right at 9 p.m., I'm going to have an event to shut these both off. I really only need to kill the intensity load because that'll switch off the whole fixture. Now, I'm going to be consistent here with my logic, but this is where you might want to think and consider just having this be normal and shutting off the light at 9 p.m. no matter what, depending on what the application is. We're going to go 0. I'm fine with a 2-second fade. And what the heck, I'll just set that one to 0 as well with a 2-second fade. So at 9 p.m., it will turn the lights off. So here we have my 12-hour light cycle for my corals, changing both intensity and CCT, but we're not done quite yet. Okay, this is where we will really need to start using our brains. We're going to go to the keypad that's going to control all this. So this natural on button, this is going to flip that variable state to on and off with the off button. But beyond that, we also want this to set the intensity and the CCT when the button is pressed. If I just flip this to on, let's say I press the button at 9:30 in the morning. My next time clock event doesn't happen until 10 a.m. That means I press the button and 30 minutes later, we see the lights come on. Not a good user experience. So with this button press, we want the lights to turn on to some intensity, some CCT. Now that's where things become a little tricky because, if we knew the user was going to press this right at 9:30, we'd say, all right, well, at 9:30, the lights are on their way to 25% intensity, 50% on the CCT. Let's just split the difference. We'll say, 10-15% intensity, 25% CCT. Great. But what if they press the button at 9:05 in the morning? What if they press the button at 9:55 in the morning, where it's supposed to be closer to 25% intensity and 50% CCT? So unless we get really, really granular with this and spend a ton of time programming, there's not going to be a perfect solution for this. So let's just walk through the steps here. I'm going to change my program type to conditional. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run an action. I want my first action to flip the variable state regardless of the time of day. So I click run action, action 1, I'm going to say natural show on. I'll go to the variable that we created and set this to on. Now, underneath that, I'm going to add a time of day condition. And I'm going to say if time of day is from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., then I'm going to add a new action. And program that action. This action is going to adjust the intensity and the CCT. Now, between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m., my lights are on their way to 25% intensity, 50% on the CCT. I'm not going to have it jump right to that level. I'm going to have it go to 15% intensity and 25% CCT. So it's, like I said, it's just splitting the difference here. If they press this button closer to 9 o'clock, the intensity and the CCT are going to be a little higher than what we would have wanted it based on the show. If we press it closer to 10 o'clock, it's going to be a little bit lower than what we want. But at 10 a.m., it's going to start to catch us up and put us into that show right where we want to be. And since we set this to be on, then at 11, noon, and then throughout the rest of the day, we're going to be on track. I'm not going to build out this entire conditional statement. If you need more information on how to build out a conditional statement, go watch the full conditional video. That's not really the point of this video today. But basically, you need to come in and now do, if time of day is from 10 a.m. to 11, do this. 11 to noon, do that, and continue building this out. So on our off button, this one's a little bit easier. We basically just need to go to variables, set this to off, and then we also want to go to our lighting loads, and we could just set the intensity to go off. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is program my two Pico remotes. I'll use the left one for intensity and the right one for CCT. I'm just going to program the left one here for our example. So fish tank intensity, raise, dim. We'll do a preset of 50%, and this one will shut the light off. The other thing we want to think about is what do we want to happen with our natural show time clock events if I turn this off using the remote, for instance. If I'm trying to watch a movie and I just adjust this using the remote, I don't want those time clock events to override what I just did with the remote, because maybe I pressed the remote 5 minutes before a time clock event. Now the time clock event runs, turns my lights back on. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to go to variables and set the variable state to off. And my show will not pick up or continue to run until I press the natural on button again. The last thing I'm going to do is make some virtual buttons that I can use for voice control, either for voice control with Amazon Alexa or Google Home or Josh AI. So I already created a virtual keypad. To make a virtual keypad, you just make a standard keypad. You do need to link assign it for it to show in the app, but you obviously don't need to activate it. I'm just going to use 3 buttons here, 20,000K, 15,000K, and 10,000K. If you're wondering why these color temperatures are up so high for my coral, it's because the red light doesn't penetrate down into the depths of the ocean very well. So corals have actually adapted to photosynthesize using the light that's more in the blue and even purple wavelengths. So we're good with 10,000K through 20,000K for coral growth. And once again, it's not going to be an exact science here, but I do kind of know the min and max range. And I'm hoping that if I set this LMJ load to be at 50%, it's going to get us about 50% of the way, halfway between 20,000 and 10,000. So I'm not going to adjust the intensity. I'm going to just do this. Now, the one downside of this is if the intensity channel was off, my voice control command is not going to override that and turn it on to any level. To avoid that, you'd have to go up and set the intensity to go to some level of on. Along with that, for me, I'd like the intensity to be set at various levels and just be able to control the color temperature with my voice. So now that I have these buttons set up, I'll be able to assign these scenes to voice control using either Amazon Alexa or Google Home. I can customize the voice command using routines, and I could say, Alexa, set the fish tank to 20,000K, or turn on fish tank to 20,000K, or cool, or white, or blue, or however I want to set up the voice control commands. So that's it for Designer. All I really need to do now is do a transfer and test everything out. All right, let's test this out, make sure everything works. So we'll give the Pico a try. Cool. Intensity works, and we'll try CCT, and that's responding as well. And last but not least, let's give voice control a shot. Alexa, turn on 20,000K. Alexa, turn on 10,000K. All right, great. That's all I have for today's video. For more videos on Ketra, HomeWorks, and Radio Raw 2, be sure to subscribe to the Thea Enterprises YouTube channel and use the bell icon to be notified every time we upload a new video. Thanks for watching.